That's not it. Hey, there it is. We're back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Inside BJJ. We had a little hiatus in January of 2025, and we wanted to bring it back with a bang. I am joined with a friend of mine back, a new friend from the Nashville area, one of the first guys that I met, Jeovany Ortiz. What's going on, Gio? You got to get right up on that mic, brother. Oh, wait. I don't hear you, man. There we go. Now you're hot. Now you're hot. So, Gio, One Nation Jiu-Jitsu, right? Black belt, been training for a long time. I want to get into your story a little bit and kind of get to know you just a little bit, and also kind of put the word out. You're doing some really cool, some really fun things, I think, in the jiu-jitsu world, and I'd like to talk about that too. Before we get the show kicking, and then I want to do a Reddit bang with you. I don't know if you know what that is, but
no idea, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, we'll do a Reddit bang at the end. Don't worry, it's fun. But before we do that, we want to have a quick word from our sponsors, Salt Electrolytes.
Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in Salt Electrolytes. Salt targets your depleted electrolyte levels with a boost of hydration and health. It gives your body the baseline recovery it needs.
All right, make sure you use the discount code inside BJJ15, save 15% at checkout. I have actually just shot one of these straight, just raw dogged it. I just ripped the top of it off and downed it, and it was the lemon lime flavor.
Oh, yeah, that one tastes pretty good.
It does. Yeah. It tastes good, but man, just raw lemon lime in your mouth. Yeah. And I was like, they're sponsors. I'm choking this bitch down. Like, I am not going to spit this out. But good stuff from Riley and the Salt crew over there. So it's been a little while since we've had an episode. I think our last episode was last year with Joe Spinell. He is a black belt in the Nashville area. Yeah. Also a trauma ER doctor, which is pretty insane to get. Yeah, it's really crazy to get his insight on stuff. Was a really good wrestler coming up as a kid, was one of the top kids coming up, and has a lot of experience in that. His boys all do jiu-jitsu and wrestle. So he was a fun guy to have on. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already. A lot has happened, man. So I don't know if I've done a show since I had pneumonia. I got pneumonia at the PGF, right? And it totally just like murked the last few days there. And I ended up missing quite a few of the events. I was like in a hotel room, like ready to die. But back feeling good, training. We just had an open mat and been trying to get Gio on for a minute. I flaked on him one Sunday morning, like totally messed up that Sunday morning. And then we saw each other a few weeks ago and we're like, man, we got to get this back on. So thanks for coming down in the afternoon, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing me out, man. I was looking forward to this.
So, dude, you've been doing jiu-jitsu since you were a kid, right? How old were you when you started?
I started when I was like 8 or 9. I can't remember the exact age, but I remember it was like around 8 or 9.
What is it? Is an 8 or 9-year-old when you started? What was going through your head as a kid when you came into it?
Well, by the time I had already started jiu-jitsu, I went ahead and I was already watching a lot of the UFCs like Chuck Liddell and like Rampage and all those guys. So like I had an idea what jiu-jitsu was. But whenever I got into it, I was really shocked. I was just thrown off because it's like I had this one kid that was literally half my size just choking me with a gi, and I was like, what is this? What's going on right
now?
I was also a butterball at the time, so.
Oh, were you? Were you one of those kids that was a chubster when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, dude.
Really?
Yeah. I think my height is what helped me gain some of that off. So
yeah, I mean, you grow a lot between the time you're 8 and 18, right? You do most of your growing, right? So you came in as a kid. It sounds like it was something that you wanted to do already. Did you seek it out? Did you go tell your folks like, hey, I want to do this?
Yeah, no. So my dad was the one that actually got me into martial arts. So I started off in karate at first, and just like probably like any other story that you hear, it's like you figure that you're a year in. I'm 8 years old and a year in, and I'm like, I was like, I don't know about all this, man.
You already,
I was already suspecting, man. And so my dad was like, well, we got to find you something else to do then. And the only reason why is because I told him I was in the after school program at the time in elementary school, and these kids were picking on me.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, I'm like, I know how to fight.
Yeah.
But then I don't know how to fight, because by the time it was time for me to throw down, I was like sitting there like,
what do I do? Put your hand here.
Yeah.
No, do it like this.
And so I was like, okay, well, this is not going to work. So whenever my dad, it's funny, this is when Yellow Pages was still a thing.
Of course, yeah.
There was a sheet that was just laying around on the ground where he worked at. And so at the time, it was a jiu-jitsu school. So like it showed, we offer these classes and everything. He's all right, well, I'm going to bring you and your brothers in to check this out. Long story short, we went in there, and then I was convinced that, this is good stuff. This is what I want. This is what I'm looking for.
What about your brothers?
So it's me. My oldest brother trained also, but he wasn't really into it.
Yeah.
My two youngest brothers, sorry, were more into it.
Do they still train?
Yeah, they do. Well, they just now got back into it like a year ago.
Oh, okay.
So they had a little bit of a layoff, but they're slowly starting to get back into it again.
How old are your younger brothers?
So my youngest brother is 18 right now. My second youngest brother, about 23, I think.
Okay.
23. And my oldest brother, he's about 2 years older. So I think 28 or 29.
So they're old enough to really try to come after you. Have you done any like jiu-jitsu with them?
Yeah, I have. So it's funny because whenever they first came in, I was working on my wrist snaps.
Yeah.
So they didn't know anything what was going on.
Sure.
So the first thing that they walk into, I just wrist snap both of them, making them do like a full 360 in the air. They're like, what the heck? I was like, yeah.
You did a keto on them?
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm going to disrespect you so bad, and you don't even know it. I'm going to wrist snap your ass. Yeah.
Wrist snapping disrespectfully.
What belt level did they get to? Did they just stay at white belt as kids, or did they?
No. So one of my younger brothers, so Andy, he got his purple belt back in 2018.
Okay.
And then around the time he graduated, he kind of stopped training. And then my youngest brother is still a yellow belt right now. But
yeah,
it's one of those things. It's time.
You're like, put your yellow belt. You should make him wear the yellow belt.
Yeah, I will.
Put it on.
Yeah,
put it on
every
now.
day for class.
That's pretty cool to have siblings who train, though.
Yeah,
I think that a lot of the really good jiu-jitsu athletes have siblings that are pretty similar in size to them,
right.
And you could tell they scrapped a lot growing up.
Oh yeah. Me and Andy were probably the ones that had more of the scraps growing up. I was way smaller back then, man. Like walk around weight for me was like 160.
Yeah.
Now I'm like 190-ish.
Yeah.
Or so. He's still like around the 120s, 130s.
Okay.
But I was still able to put weight on him like I could, so that way he can, be pushed.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the motivation for you to stick with it as a kid?
I just like the combat, man.
Yeah.
My mom says this to everybody, is that as a kid, I would always be the antsiest. I wanted to be hands-on.
Okay.
And so it makes sense. I just like the combat. I was like I told you, I was into the UFCs even before I started training. And so the fact of sitting there and just slugging it out, like seeing these guys just slug it out and just put it all out there. For some reason, I don't know if it's psychotic or if it's one of those things that it's just, I like seeing that, just a bunch of dogs out there, man.
Did you ever go through patches, especially when you were a kid, where you were kind of not into it, or you didn't? Did you quit? Did you have any times when you're like, I don't want to do it?
So I think that may have happened around the earlier time me training. So I was training heavily probably for about 2 years or so. and then I got into school sports for a little bit. So I still came in and trained. I just didn't train as much as I was prior to that.
Yeah.
So I played a little bit of football, I did wrestling for like one season in middle school. And then I was just sitting there. I was like, I need to come back to jiu-jitsu. I'm more interested in that than anything.
Do you wish you would have wrestled more?
Part of me does, but a lot of me doesn't regret the experiences I got from jiu-jitsu. So throughout high school, I was always out of school. And so I would be asked by teachers, like, why are you out of school? I'm like, well, I'm doing jiu-jitsu tournaments. I'm going out doing hands. I'm doing these big tournaments that you guys have no idea. With
so you were competing a lot then?
I was traveling a lot. And at the time I was doing a lot of IBJJFs too.
Yeah.
So whenever I was missing school, I was out doing side quests. I was doing side quests at 15 years old, man.
Cool side quests though.
Yeah.
You weren't like going with your parents somewhere on
no
missionary trip. You were like going and fighting in tournaments on the weekends, man.
Yeah, so that's the thing. A lot of these schools don't know, because it's not an extracurricular activity that's tied in with the school.
Yeah.
So when even kids at school will be like, "Well, where have you been, man?" I was like, "I was in California this past weekend." Yeah. Or I was in Seattle or in Boston or something like that. So although I do see a lot of my friends had good experiences doing school sports in terms of like wrestling and everything like that. I don't regret the decision or the path I decided to take, because everyone has their own experiences, and I don't think anybody can take that away from me.
Did you have your sights set on any kind of specific thing? The reason I'm saying that is, like, a lot of kids that start young and they stick with it, they want to be like the black belt IBJJF world champion.
Yeah.
Was that the sort of thing you were gunning for?
Yeah. So I was aiming for like the Grand Slams, the mega Grand Slams, like 80cc. 80cc wasn't really a big thing at the time, but I knew it was a really prestigious tournament too. So since I trained in the gi a little bit more and competed more in the gi, my goals were more set for like around the IBJJF, doing the Abu Dhabi Pro qualifiers and things like that. I never got to do the Abu Dhabi qualifiers, but that was something that was sitting on my mind. And then whenever no gi season came around, it was all right. Let's get ready for 80cc.
Yeah.
So
I feel like you still haven't backed off that. Like, you still compete quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to find more things to do, man. It's a little hard here locally. I almost have to travel a little bit further out to find anything.
Yeah.
Especially with no-gi. As a black belt, I mean, I can still go to like these IBJJFs, but I mean, I'm sure you've heard people's opinions on IBJJF.
Yeah.
Recently, man. It's just one of those things that.
Yeah, they run. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because they run big, well-organized tournaments. Right. And they've gotten their act together in terms of the actual tournaments and the timing and the scheduling and notification. They're pretty good at it now, right?
Right.
But they're also very particular in their rule set, and there's very specific rules, and it's a very specific kind of game that you have to really be engulfed in to be successful at it. If you're not training for that style, you won't. You'll get beat by people that are.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's kind of like the biggest thing in town in terms of the gi. I mean, the IBJJF is where it's at. If you're going to be a gi player, that's the place to do it.
Right. Yeah. The only problem I have with them as of recently, especially, there was a lot of complaints, was the inconsistency with the reffing this past like no gi worlds. Mm-hmm. And so I saw a lot of people upset, and it is true, man. I mean, I did it for a while where I traveled out, and I mean, sometimes I got the short end of the stick from the refs and certain matches. I'm like, I just spent all these dollars traveling out and then lodging, and then on top of that, I had already gotten the membership fee done and registrations out of control. I'm like, all right, well then where's the,
it's disheartening.
Yeah. So I can see where it can frustrate a lot of people, man, detour them and make them look for other options.
Yeah, I think on the no-gi side, it's still kind of open where everyone's trying lots of different things. It's not as locked down.
Yeah.
Like nobody really has the market cornered. Like the IBJJF has the gi market pretty well snapped up, But when it comes to the no-gi side, there's multiple promotions and formats and rule sets, and they seem to offer more money, right? That's a more common thing in the no-gi world when you have those fights. Like not all the time, but a lot of the times athletes are getting something. It might not be a ton, but it's more common to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I see, that IBJJF is starting to pick their game up on, especially on some of these pro shows.
Yeah.
Like the whole setup and everything, like lights on. Even in the finals of the gi worlds, they have it set up like a stage now.
Oh, really?
Watching like the last 2 years, I think they've been like that.
I used to be so into it.
Yeah,
though. Yeah.
There's only a handful of guys I can watch now, man. Some of them will just play the game and just play very boring. But the guys that are finishing their opponents consistently are the ones that I love to watch, man.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to sit there and watch a 50-50 battle for 10 minutes, man. It's not the way.
No, I agree with you. It's not entertaining.
No.
You know. No. So on the no-gi side, you mentioned you're looking for things to do. What kinds of things are you looking at?
So this year I look at this year I'm looking at it as it's trials year. So East Coast trials is probably going to come around like either October or November. So anything that is related to the ADCC format, or just something that can get me moving and keep me consistent on the competition mats, is what I'm looking for more than anything. So if there's any IBJJFs or anything like that, I know I'm contradicting myself a little bit.
You're going to go do it, aren't you?
I might go do it. But if there isn't anything else to do, I know I had a match scheduled earlier this year, but due to the weather and stuff, we had to end up rescheduling. So hopefully we may have Enigma back in April.
Okay.
So we may get that set up. But yeah, Nashville just needs more no-gi stuff, man. It just does. I don't feel like there is that many people interested in it.
There's some, but even at the tournaments, they're way smaller for the no-gi divisions. Yeah. The gi's pretty popular here.
It is.
Seems like. But it makes sense though.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. But I think some of the guys are, because no-gi has a lot of eyes on it. And so a lot of people that are trying to get into jiu-jitsu want to do more no-gi.
Yeah.
And so I think if people don't at least acknowledge that a little bit more, we're not going to get out of this cycle of the gi is the only way. The gi is the only way. It's not the only way.
Yeah.
Which is why we went to the change almost 5 years ago.
Yeah. So talk about that, because for the listeners, one of the things that One Nation did was basically went full no gi.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about what was the thought process leading up to it, and then what was the actual how did it play out when you guys actually did it? What was the response from your students, and how did that work, man?
So you already know, man, whenever there's change, people don't like change.
Yeah.
But the reason why we changed it is because we just saw that no-gi was more practical. It would allow us to be more efficient with our jiu-jitsu, where oftentimes with training in the gi, you get more grip reliant. There's ways to apply yourself in the gi where it could still be practical, but the thing is that there's so many things. Like, I'm not going to use worm guard in a street fight.
No,
I'm not going to use spider guard. But whenever I get asked this question, when people come in and they're asking me, well, why did you guys shy away from the gi? It's because I'm like, at the end of the day, it's all jiu-jitsu, right? And so whether you train in the gi or you train no gi, regardless of who you train, you have the advantage over the average person you walk in front of.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to go and pick fights with anybody, or I'm going to try to avoid the situation because, I just don't know what people are carrying out there, man.
And there's some tough people that they don't know how to grapple, but if they start swinging, they put hands on you, it's not as easy as one would think. Yeah,
you run into like a former college football player, man, or that's a nightmare right there waiting to happen.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much jiu-jitsu you can get be able to come out on top, but you're not going to come out.
You're gonna take
you're gonna take some damage, man.
Yeah.
So, but going back to the whole no-gi thing, man, that's the main reason why we switched over to no-gi is because we just wanted to teach or be able to teach and be able to apply more efficient jiu-jitsu, and people will find it more something more practical to do.
So, How did it work? Did you guys, like, I know if I have a major change coming up, then I have to kind of start prepping people for it.
Yeah.
A couple months ahead of time. Hey guys, like, look out for this. How did that go?
It went well for the most part. We had a few people that were just in love with the gi, and they were like, man, we really got to let it go. And I was just in there, yeah, we're going to let it go. You know, none of this is going to change. This should all make your jiu-jitsu better, you know? And so we always had conversations with our people too. And so it made them understand why we're making this change. And not just like, here you go. This is what we're doing now. So that way people would understand. And it took a little bit for people to adjust to it and get used to it. But, you know, now here we are like 5 years later and
Did you lose any students? Was there anybody that was like, hey man,
I gotta go. This
is for me, dude. Like,
no, not really, man. I think everyone kind of stuck around. Not everyone that I can think of, like, have in mind of. I think pretty much everyone ended up staying. Like I said, it was a change for everyone, but they ended up adjusting to it.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. We had a gi and a no gi program in Stockton for a long time, and then eventually we just cut the gi program, and we lost some of those students.
Yeah,
some people are really into the idea of martial arts.
Yes.
And putting on the uniform and tying the belt, it makes them feel a certain way that no-gi doesn't give them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they want that. They want to be like, I'm a mark. And I 100% believe
I get it.
No-gi jiu-jitsu is a martial art.
Yes.
Like, I think wrestling's a martial art.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, a good high school wrestler is going to have a gigantic advantage in a fight. Like, it's huge. So I think there's that component, right? Where people are just kind of like, I don't know, man. I kind of like my blue belt. Like, am I still a blue belt? Do
I still get my, my next belt?
Yeah, did you see any change in the culture when you switched it? One of the reasons I ask is, when everybody always has the belts on all the time, the hierarchy is like really always presented. Right. And there's a little bit more of a formality. And when you kind of don't know where everyone's ranked because you're just in the room, maybe it's your first time in the room, it's a little less formal. It just feels like you could roll with anybody. You're just training and it's whatever.
Yeah. You know? No, it definitely. So it does throw a little bit of, throw some people off whenever when they're in there rolling, they're like, well, so what belt are you? Yeah. Or they'll sit there and they automatically, you're a black belt, aren't you? I'm like, yeah. So, but some people will be surprised. Like, we got some good guys in there at white and blue right now. Some of them are still white belts. And whenever we've had other visitors come in, other blue belts or purple belts, and they roll with these white belts, they're like, so what belt are you? Oh, I'm still a white belt.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Yeah, no-gi does do. I actually really like that part of no-gi.
Yeah,
it's going.
I think it's good, man. I think it makes you realize that belts really don't matter, especially now.
Right.
It's more common now to hear about a purple belt get beat by a black belt. I mean, I'm guilty of it.
Yeah, yeah.
But like 10 or 15 years ago, it was really uncommon to hear that. It was really.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah, if a purple beat a black, it was a big deal.
Yeah, but it's more of a common thing. It's common to see 16-year-old blue belts wrecking black belts now. It's more different.
Yeah, I think
more different.
I think you're right. I think that it's more grappling oriented, and you have to have good grappling skills, right? That aren't necessarily like commonly considered jujitsu.
Right.
You still need the jiu-jitsu, right? Because it's submission grappling, and the submission component is a huge part of it. But there's just, I know I trained in the gi for 10 or 11 years before I started training no-gi, and I became a better grappler. It's like, well, there's a lot of transitions that don't really happen in the gi because it slows it down so much that the transition doesn't exist, So that part of it was kind of interesting to me,
Yeah. Yeah, that's what most of our guys were talking about, is that whenever we've just thrown the gi on, for fun.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, I feel like I'm cheating right now. Like, I can actually pull myself in this passing position.
Yeah.
And so I've played around with the gi a couple times at an open mat.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's fun. But my fingers don't think it's fun.
No, I know.
It sucks.
I put it on last Sunday because one of our students signed up for a white belt gi tournament. He's a white belt. He wrestled, but he's new to jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And we put the gi on, and it was like, oh, it's so much easier to roll with this guy because I could just grab onto him now. His wrestling's pretty good, you know. So like, I don't want to wrestle with him. If I could just put that jacket on him, kind of like
slow him down,
pull him into me,
so, lasso you real quick.
He was the dude that had the big giant takedown.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that was him.
So speaking of last week, we had a dual meet at One Nation, and this is something we've done a couple times. It's something that you brought up last year, right?
Yeah,
you had this idea, and we did it, and it was awesome. My students loved it. I think it's a great idea that what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
and we did it again last week, and then you have another one coming up.
Yeah,
and is it in February?
Yeah, it's the 23rd.
Okay,
23rd.
so
it's on a Sunday
at the end of the month. It's coming up, and I think it's 10th Planet Crossville.
Yeah.
Crossville.
I think they're Crossville just jiu-jitsu right now, but they're planning on trying to be 10th Planet Crossville at some point.
And then Zenith, or was it somebody?
It's Guardian. Yeah.
Guardian.
So Guardian and Crossville jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and One Nation.
Yeah. Yep.
So talk about what you guys are doing.
So start off, I honestly got the idea from you whenever you start doing the holy rollers and having the guys come in that were white and blue belts and giving them a chance to get mat time in. And so, oftentimes, the purples and up get more of the attention, but sometimes there are some purple belts, brown belts, or black belts that don't want to step out there and compete for their students. And I never understood that. So we find out the white and blue belts, they're more game. They're ready to throw down. And have you seen it the past couple of times?
They're trying to prove themselves.
Yeah. And so the idea that you had with them just coming in, getting mat time in without a registration fee, and not have to worry about that was an excellent idea for all these guys that want to compete consistently, that want to constantly be on those competition mats. And so, just like we talked about with the PGF rule set, that rule set's going to take off.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's going to get modified, but it's another rule set that's added on to the no-gi scene. So with the duels, I think what it does is, again, gives the guys mat time and lets them come in and they get to bring their families or their team out, and it gives coaches a chance to be able to see what their students need to work on as well. And so I think with that, we're trying to get more teams involved in the area to see, because towards the end of the year we're going to plan on doing something pretty big with it. And so we're looking at this is going to be the white and blue belt league or season for now. Yeah. And eventually we want to do like a little league for them as well. Yeah. Give those guys a spotlight without having, again, to pay $100, almost $200 for a division.
For a tournament. I know. Right.
So friendly scrimmaging, man, but at the same time, I think it's going to be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, it's a good vibe. And we did open mat after, which is super fun. I feel like everyone's game though.
Yes.
Like everyone's coming to win. Like people, like I wasn't.
They were like scrimmage, but no, we're coming to.
You're coming to win.
Oh,
though.
Yeah.
So the way the duel works, very common in wrestling.
Yeah.
Right. Not as common in jiu-jitsu. We do quintets in jiu-jitsu and things like that. Yeah. But the way the duel works is it's UFC weight classes.
Yeah.
Kind of dependent on if you have the lighter guys, right? Sometimes we don't always have that, but it was 155, 170, 185, 205.
And then 206 and above.
206 and up.
Yeah.
And so your guys in each weight class, they slot up against each other. They have a match. And then we use the PGF scoring.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So 3 points for a break, 6 points, or 5 points for a kill.
Yeah. I meant to say 6 points. I read the rules wrong.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be a 6.
Yeah.
So like I said, this year is going to be more of like trying to modify
figuring it out.
Yeah. So anyways, 6 points.
And then essentially the team that has the most points wins that block, let's say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's a real fun way to get the guys motivated too. because we know it's coming. Hey, the dual meet's coming up in 3 weeks. Like, you know, we need to be training, get your work in. And then we do EBI overtime rounds.
Correct.
Right. Which I think is fun. And I really like the idea of having a season or at least a schedule, even if it's not formal, like, hey, there's a grand championship at the end, but the benefit of, if I could go to my students and go, hey, coming up on March 10th, we're starting the new season and we have a dual meet every weekend or every 2 weeks until May, right? It's going to run for 10 weeks. So if you're part of the team, you got to fucking show up and put the work in and let's go. We're going to do this. I think that would be so much fun, first of all, but it would also give the students a chance to be part of a competitive team for a stretch versus going like, I'm kind of feeling it, so I'm going to sign up for the next grappling games.
Yeah.
And then they don't compete for 11 more months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until Naga comes through town or whatever. It's like, why are we waiting for these promotions that are okay? Like, I'm not hating on them, but you got to pay them. You got to drive out there. You got to do all this shit. Well, we could just do it in our schools.
Yeah.
The same times we're doing our open mats, we just do this instead.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it brings more accountability to the, you know, because you're like, oh shit, I'm part of a team. I'm part of this team. They're counting on me, you know, so a lot of that accountability starts setting in. And so you're sitting there like, all right, well then I got to get my shit together. You know, I can't stop. I got to stop eating these Twinkies.
I got to make weight.
I got to make weight, you know,
although we were a little lenient, but one of my guys came in. He competed the previous day at New Breed. And so, and he was on weight 190. So the next day or 185, I guess. So the next day he's like, how close do I got to be? I said, well, you got to be close. Like, you can't come in like way over, you know? I think he was right on the edge of close and like, you're too over, dude. Like, what did you do, man? But it's still friendly enough that nobody's freaking out about it.
No, so he came in and we saw him. I was like, nah, man, you're good.
Just get on the mat.
Just get on the mat.
Just be quiet.
Yeah.
No, it was a good time, man. Big shout out to Ephraim and ADG also, because those guys came and they were game. Look, they whooped our ass, dude. We had a rough Sunday, but it was good. And I told the guys, this is good to happen at the start of the year because it really gives you some feedback on what you should be doing, where your commitment level is, like how you're training. You don't have to train hours and hours and hours and hours every day, but you do have to train. And if you come and you focus and you do it with intention and you're about it during the training, you get a lot more out of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, man. Like I said, the accountability aspect of it, you know, you got to hold yourself accountable. I got to show up for class because the guys are counting on me. But yeah, that's what I like about it, man. Because, you know, just like you said, just oftentimes you sign up for a tournament and it's maybe just you, and then now you have your whole team behind you on this one thing. You know, I just love the team aspect of it. Getting the guys, seeing all the teams that day, man, how they were so supportive of each other.
Yeah.
Some of the individual matches we had were pretty exciting as well, and just you could feel the energy in the room. And so I just want to make it to where it's exciting for everybody, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
that's a fun format.
Oh yeah.
And I think the smaller enclosed space makes it more energetic.
Yeah.
You know, if it's too big and there's lots of like empty space, then it feels like it's not quite. I like everyone around the mats and like screaming and yelling. And, and it's good practice, especially if it's someone's first or second tournament.
Yeah.
Although some of those guys are good. Like, I'm like, these guys can beat a lot. Like, you know, but I like that.
Oh yeah.
You got to know where the level is.
Yeah.
And it's good feedback for all of us as a community, because now I can go, Geo's blue belts are about right here and ADG blue belts are about right here. And then you can go like, well, where are we at in relationship to that? And that's how you keep the standard high.
Yeah.
You know, it's, if you're out on your own all the time, you never cross train, just our team, we have all the best jiu-jitsu and it's just us and our secrets, then your standard drops and you don't know it.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting that good feedback from the outside world. And then somebody rolls through and beefs up all your dudes, you know?
Yeah. No, that's the main thing too, man, is just, trying to get better. You need more exposure, and be able to get more exposure or trying to see where you need to work at is just going against or going either cross training or going out there and just competing a lot more.
So when you started jiu-jitsu, were you in this area? Were you in Tennessee?
Yeah, I'm a homegrown boy.
Born and raised,
man.
Man.
Born and raised in Tennessee.
So how much has the jiu-jitsu scene changed since that time to now?
Oh, a lot, man. I mean, I've been doing this for almost a little over 15 years now. So, I mean, there was just a handful of schools whenever I first started. It really, the change, I didn't see much. I saw more of the changes probably like the last maybe 5 or 6 years, maybe. Yeah. So, I mean, it's changed a lot. I mean, there's a lot of schools. I mean, there's schools everywhere now. But I think that just shows like how more jiu-jitsu is growing as well. But yeah, I mean, like I said, just handful of schools whenever I first started. There really weren't that many schools at the time. Jiu-jitsu wasn't really a thing. Like, no one really knew about it. There was just like a group of guys that just knew it.
It was a secret club.
Pretty much.
It was fun though. There was a certain satisfaction I got out of knowing like I'm with this group of guys and we're training and like nobody's really doing this stuff. Hardly anybody is, let's say.
Yeah.
And then when you watch the UFC, it was kind of the same way. Like, there's not that many people that actually like this, but they're dumb because this is awesome.
Yeah,
we know
really cool.
This is our shit,
Yeah.
Now that the UFC exploded and it pulled jiu-jitsu up with it as it started to skyrocket. Because when you watch it, if you're somebody who's watching at home and you see the striking and you see all these aspects of it, and you're like, man, I'd like to get into this. What part of this is the most accessible thing I could go start doing tomorrow?
Yeah.
It's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You can go do jiu-jitsu tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you going to get in a ring and spar with somebody and throw headshots? No. You're not going to do that. You're going to go into a wrestling room and start doing takedown? No, you're not going to do that either. If you don't have that already kind of in your pocket, you're not going to do it. But you'll go to the jiu-jitsu class, and so I feel like jiu-jitsu really benefited from that accessibility. It was like, hey, you don't have to be a great athlete. You don't have to be in super amazing shape. Just fucking show up and put the gi on. That's what we all did and train.
Yeah.
And I think it grew a lot because of that. But at a certain point, it really spilled over into the general population where not everybody, but many people that I talk to now, they know what jiu-jitsu is.
Right.
They're familiar with it. They know what the UFC is. They know, they know who Conor McGregor is, right? There's a certain level that it's reached in the social kind of memory where it's out there, but that means that there's a different kind of person coming to try it.
Yes.
Back in the day, everyone that did it was kind of a hard ass a little bit. It was mostly like tough people or they became that way. Now it's just like everybody, soccer moms and dudes that are 59 years old who want to change their life, or whatever. It's a different audience. How does that impact you as an instructor, like with your approach?
Yeah. So what I always tell everybody that walks in through the door, I always tell them, what are you here for? Regardless of what you're here for, what your goals are, we're very goal driven. We have a great team, and the culture helps out a lot too in the gym, man. If you have a good culture, everybody will love to be in there. Yeah. But there will be some people that just don't vibe with you, and that's okay. There's always other options. But more than anything, what I let people know is that, we are very goal driven, whether you're here for self-defense, just to get in shape, just to be a part of, a team and feel a part of something. Everyone in here is very supportive, and everyone's very easy to get along with. And then I tell them that I support you. You come in, and I'll help whatever goal it is. I'll help you achieve it, whether it's one of those reasons I listed off. So that's the main thing. So like, if you probably would have met me 6 years ago, I wasn't really running classes that much 6 years ago. I was just like more towards like the kids classes and stuff. 6 or 7 years ago, you would have met me and you'd be like, oh, man, this guy's an asshole. He just wants to go. but not everybody can go. You know,
Yeah.
everybody, you know, you gotta run the class to where people are still gonna work. The athletes are gonna get work out of it. The people that are hobbyists and the people that just want to come in and, you know, be in shape or just be a part of something can still be in part of the class as well. So that's one of the main things. I think that's where I saw like a lot of the growth of like the maturity on trying to like help running a school.
Yeah.
Was just just making sure that, hey, like it's okay, you know, everybody can work at the same pace.
Yeah.
Or like I could still run the classes to where everyone can get something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liken it to being a chef who has to cook a meal where there's a little something for everybody. People with refined taste, people that only like chicken tender, you know, like you have to kind of find that. And that can be difficult. Yeah. It can be. If the composition of the class is real extreme, it can be tricky to do.
Yeah.
One thing I do like about the culture of jiu-jitsu is that it's real common if, say, you have a bunch of new people come in on the same day, a little unexpected. Maybe they bring someone with them or you get a walk-in, right? It's pretty helpful to have assistants or just people that are like, hey, this guy's a pro. Hey, work with these two guys today on this, right? And they do it. It's part of the culture. Now, there are times when maybe, especially with the younger athletes, they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm here to get down, dude. But most of the time people are pretty comfortable with it. And a lot of students actually like that opportunity to help.
Yeah.
That's like their little way of kind of getting their feet wet with what is it like to actually teach somebody?
Yeah.
What does that mean? How does that work? So how did your jiu-jitsu develop or change after you started teaching a lot?
Just the small details, man. You got to just look at that. So you're teaching a group. It comes down from either from teaching a 5-year-old how to do an S-mount armbar to teaching an adult how to do an S-mount armbar. And so where I saw it the most is like just keeping a lookout for the details. You know, those details matter. And so what was taught to me earlier by Cliff was, and I would hear him tell the kids at the time during the speeches, would be, if you look at the house, what is the house built out of? You know, you got the frame and then you got the nails that hold the frame up. If you take those nails out of the frame, that whole fucking house falls apart.
Yeah.
So I took that concept and was like, okay, well then this is how it's going to be, guys. This is how this is how we're going to drill this, you know? And so making sure that I realized and paid close attention to what I needed to teach, so that way all the techniques would be applied efficiently. Then I just had to make sure I did my part in studying, and I did my part in making sure that I kept a good eye on everybody. Like I said, from kids to adults.
Yeah.
So
it's some people I've noticed come in and their brain and their body is wired up better.
Yeah.
They can just do things a little more easy that maybe aren't natural. Like shrimping is not a natural movement.
No.
There's no normal everyday use case where you would shrimp, right? And so you can have two people come in and one person cannot do it. Like they can't get their brain and their body wired up, and then the other person can do it in 2 tries.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sometimes that front part of jiu-jitsu is kind of hard because the person's actually asking their body to do things that their body has not really been prepared to do yet.
Correct.
And so there's almost like this neurological, physiological process that's happening with them in the beginning where their body and their brain is getting wired up together. And they're like, okay, I can actually like move around. Okay, now I can try the techniques.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's challenging. It's different. You really have to feel jiu-jitsu, which makes it sound kind of magical, hocus pocus, but it really is true. You have to feel it a certain way, and you know when it's right. Like if you snap a triangle on and it's right, you know when you're going to get the tap, and you know when it's like, I don't know, I'm going to have to make some adjustments here.
Right.
But you can't teach someone that feeling. You have to teach them, like you're saying, the techniques and the things that can put them in a position to where they could do it and get it. And they're like, oh, okay, that's what it is, you know? Yeah.
So on the topic on teaching, I'm pretty sure you heard this topic over and over again recently about the ecological approach.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, I got to say this. First of all, the debate was a train wreck.
Dude.
Okay. That was not a debate. No. It was a train wreck. And I like Greg Souders and I like Tom DeBlast, but these are not the right two guys to be debating on the internet. They're just not, dude.
Right.
My personal way I think about it is I think that they're both on the same spectrum. Okay. Yeah. So I really think that the ecological style of jiu-jitsu is a good way for newer students to develop some of the skills you need that are kind of hard to get. And we used to do that. We just called it mat time.
Yeah.
Like you just got to come in and train. You got to train, like
building mat awareness, all that.
Yeah. I think those drills really help with those things. But there are some mechanical things in jiu-jitsu, like doing an armbar from closed guard, that are really kind of hard to do. They're not natural to do. And sometimes you need some static practice.
Yeah.
But I don't view that practice. I think that's constraint based too, just way more constraints.
Yeah.
The constraints are your partner can't resist. I want you to put your foot here. I want you to put your arm here. You're giving them many constraints, right? Which is fine. Yeah, give them a lot. That's fine. You teach them how to drill it. And then that's like trying it on. That's like going to the store and trying the jacket on. You're like, I look good. You're drilling it. Yeah. But if you can't really pull that off, then you never take that jacket home. You take it off, you put it back on the rack. You're like, I don't own it yet. I'm just trying shit on.
Right.
But those games help people try things on.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and then they get to a point where they're like, I think I can do this. I think to say that you should only do ecological jiu-jitsu and like never teach anything, never have drilling.
Yeah.
I think that might be a little short-sighted, in my own opinion.
Right.
I think there's room for refinement. I just think traditionally jiu-jitsu is taught refinement too early, because you teach new people solutions to problems that they don't know they have yet.
Yeah.
So it goes over their head. They don't catch it.
Right.
But when you kind of go like, here's the goal, just like try to do this. And then this person's going to give you resistance.
Yeah.
And they try and they mess up. And they go like, well, this kept happening. And then you go, oh, because you should do it like this. They don't forget those solutions.
Yeah.
Because they had a real problem that is solved. So,
yeah.
I don't know, man. There's champions who are champions because they train in a room full of champions. And then there's champions that train in a room full of purple belts.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know what the way is. I think it's
definitely more than one way to skin the cat.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think as you get better at jiu-jitsu too, and you have more awareness, you need less static drilling.
Yeah.
I can just tell you something like, dude, just put your leg here, and then you can go try that. And you already like, you have context for it.
Yeah. I think like my opinion on the ecological approach, it's not wrong. I think more than anything, what the point that was trying to be made across is that if you take a brand new person and you stick them in like a De La Hiva and you tell them, all right, your goal is to get to their head and make chest to chest connection. It's like, how am I going to do that? With no exact direction. And so we do situational drills all the time. And so I go through the drills. I think going through drills, especially for a newer set of students, helps them get those gross movements down. So that way, and the way I've always looked at it has been, if you are drilling as perfect as you can, statically, whenever it's time for you to try to apply it in a live situation, the technique may not be applied to the perfection of what you were drilling it at, but at least you have gotten those gross movements down. And as you keep working that position, keep doing the situational rolling, then you can keep refining those movements, and that's how you get better. I mean, that's how I got really good at triangles, is because I was drilling them statically, over and over again, and just knowing how to, getting the muscle memory down. And so, whenever you, I think if you take the drilling portion away from like newer people, they're gonna have a harder time understanding, especially with no explanation at all.
Yeah.
And the people that are able to just pick it up with like zero drilling at all, those are like that. Those are the outliers right there. Those are people that you can just tell them to do something and they'll automatically do it.
I think you become a better grappler when you understand the explanation to why something works.
Yeah.
or why something's important to do. And there's certain like light bulbs that go off where you go, oh, and now, you know, your whole guard passing game is better because you understand this concept that somebody explained to you that you didn't understand before, right? They just shined a light on it. You're like, oh shit, that makes sense now, right?
Right.
Having said that, I have noticed I did have this experience where I would teach certain techniques, and then when I would always tell students like and I think this is in line with what you were saying, and that you teach them like, here is an efficient, really clean way to do this technique. Like this is the standard. This is what you should be striving for. But when you do it in a real match, it might not be as clean. Your grip might not be as good. You're getting a lot of resistance. You know, your hip might not be in the right spot. But your goal is to get that live version of it as close to that high standard as possible. Yeah. I do think there is a certain wisdom in that, because you're putting the student in a position to adapt these techniques in real time in a really efficient way.
Yeah.
Like you can learn a shitty armbar and get away with it against a bunch of other new people, and you might tighten it up here or there. But if you don't really understand the mechanics of it, you know, it's harder to do. And now you're just kind of doing things in the dark.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I think that I do both. You know, I have, sometimes I'll do a class. Lately, I've been doing a lot of, all right, here's the game. You're trying to do this, partner's trying to do that. And then we'll do a few rounds of it, and then I'll circle them up and go, hey, did anybody like accomplish the goal?
Yeah. Do like a mini Q&A.
Yeah.
Guys. Yeah. Yeah. We've done that a couple of times too, where we stop halfway through the rounds, and then we're like, all right, what is everyone running into? What issues are you guys running into? And then we go back, and then we keep moving around, and until someone, you know, if we have anybody that has more issues, just try to solve them right there.
I think that's a good way to learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Right. Because some people will go like, yeah, you know, I could never get the underhook. Okay, well, how were you trying? Like this. Oh, well, okay, well, let me show you another way to try it. Try it like this instead. And those are real solutions to problems that they have, you know? So I'll mix, and then I might have them all drill it. All right, hey, let's drill this sequence now. Like this is a good way to do this. I don't know what the perfect ratio is, but I don't know if anybody does. You know, you just keep, and there's some really successful gyms, like New Wave is a successful gym. AOJ is a successful gym. However, those are gyms where you have to be very like-minded with the culture and the methodology of the gym. And if you're not, you'll flounder out. You'll be gone. You can't succeed there. If you want to be part of the AOJ crew, you got to be down with their program, and it has to work for you. And you already kind of have to be with it. If you're not with that, boom, you got to go somewhere else. So they're very closed systems.
Yeah.
Right. Most schools can't operate that way because they don't have enough of a presence to do it. Right. It's like, okay, well, if you're Rafa Mendez and you won worlds 8 years in a row, then you're going to have a lot of people seek you out, and you could be pretty selective about how you're going to do things. If you're Tim Freeman and you open a school, you don't get to be that guy, right? You got to make something for everybody. And I would say, you know, 90% of the jiu-jitsu schools in the world are like ours are. They're not like AOJ or New Wave or whatever, right? They're just not geared that way. So
no, I agree with that.
So PGF season 8 is coming up. There's only been 2 names. Yeah, 2 names have been dropped. Jet Thompson, who's a big 155.
You know what, man? People were like, man, he's too big. I'm like, man, that kid is 17, 18 years old. He can cut that weight.
he can.
I
think he can. But it's a lot of weight.
It is a lot of weight. Yeah.
And the other name that has been unofficially leaked, but the person leaked it themselves on accident. So is Gianni Grippo.
Nice.
Who's great at jiu-jitsu, you know. There's some other really talented guys on that roster that just they have